Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 horror film It Lives Inside. The film is co-written and directed by Bishal Dutta and it stars Megan Suri, Neera Bajwa, we have Betty Gabriel, Vic Sehe and Gage Marsh. Now the film focuses on an Indian American teenager. She's struggling with her own kind of identity, place in the world. I mean, she's a teenager and she's struggling with her cultural identity. She has a falling out with her previous best friend who she grew up with called Tamira, I believe. And Tamira has kind of become like the butt of the jokes amongst the school. She's become a loner. And she tries to reconnect with her best friend by offering help. And unwittingly, if you like, releases like a demonic spirit or entity that kind of feeds on people's loneliness. And this then attaches itself to Sam, this teenage Indian girl. And she really struggles to get people to believe what's going on and to find out a way to deal with the issue that she's having to deal with. Right. What are my thoughts on It Lives Inside? Well, I'm seeing a bit of a pattern and a trend these days. There's a lot of horrors coming out, and I've reviewed quite a few of them on this channel. Just one very recently that kind of had a very similar feel to this, even though the subject matters are different. And they've got almost like that real indie vibe and feel to them, almost like an A24 film. You know, there's a lot of talent on display here. It just it doesn't stick the landing, if you like. It loses its way quite drastically, I think, the final act of the film. And I do think it's a shame, because, as I've said, there was an awful lot of potential here. I love seeing horrors that are exploring different cultures, and this really does do that. It explores, like, the Indian culture from a lot of different angles. Quite a lot of the conversations are in subtitles, sort of thing, and if that puts you off, then so be it. But much of the film isn't in subtitles. It's just like when she's speaking with her family at home, the majority of it is in subtitles, and it adds an air of authenticity to the film. I always like that when films do that, and this film is littered with that. It feels authentic, it feels grounded, it feels believable at times. And it's propped up by some pretty impressive performances, especially by Megan Suri, I believe she's called, who plays Sam. I thought she was outstanding, really, at times. And then I was really interested in this film, this whole idea of this entity. I mean, we've seen so many of these demonic spirits that latch onto people and whatever, and different spins on possession, I suppose, or a different form of it. We've seen a lot of that being explored these last few years, and this is no different. And I really like that. I like a different approach and originality to horror, and the whole idea of this entity, like latching onto your loneliness, and it forces you to become lonely, because anybody that connects to you or offers help in any way is an immediate target for this entity. So it just keeps backing you into a corner and making you more and more lonely. So you're terrified to reach out because you know that person you're reaching out to is in danger. But if you don't reach out, you're absolutely stuck. What do you do? So it works on two fronts, this, because you get this teenager Sam, who eventually becomes the attention of this entity, but also it gets you thinking about this poor girl Tamira, who was having to deal with this for so long. You know, that's another story I wouldn't have minded seeing. And I thought the film played on that really, really well, and I thought it was good to get you thinking and stuff. And again, it just so disappointed me, the climax of the film. The last, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, it treads very familiar horror tropes. It breaks its own rules, doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm not, it's not a spoiler really, but there's a scene here where there's a teacher, I think she's called Joyce, who is trying very hard to help Sam, get through what she's going through. And Sam is very aware that she can't accept help from anybody. So there's this big scene where it appears that this teacher is offering help. And Sam's like, it's all right, don't bother. And then something happens where this teacher clearly can't come to a logical conclusion of what's happened. And then the very next scene, she's just been warned that if you help me, you're in danger, pretty much. And then they've pretty much, I think it's almost immediately the very next scene, she's ringing her up, this teacher, giving her more information about this entity. And it's one of those lazy tropes where, you tap a few buttons on the internet and you learn everything you need to learn about this, demonic beastie. Or you speak to, or as she does in this film, she speaks to her mother and she gets more information about this entity. And you're just like, come on, be a bit more creative. I've invested a lot of my time into watching this film. And then it's like they've run out of ideas. How can we get right from this point in the film to the end of the film? I know we'll just tick a few horror tropes, throw them in there, and I found that so disappointing. I really, really did, because I thought the film was better than that, and I thought the performances, and everything like that, the way the film was made, deserved a better ending than we actually got. So I was quite disappointed with what we got from about, I don't know, about an hour into the film, something like, because the setup I thought was expertly done. And I was very, very interested in what was happening with these characters. And there were some very, very frightening scenes. I mean, not terrifying. I mean, it's a bit like comedy horror. Some people react to horror differently than others. I thought there were some effective scenes with this entity showing what it can do, and the actual thought of this entity, or it's just knowing its presence is there, or seeing this invisible force attacking people, was far more effective. Believe me, 100 times more effective than when we actually get to see this creature. It was a massive letdown for me when you actually get the reveal of this creature. It just was a real anticlimax. So watch this film, because there's a lot of originality here. There's a lot of ideas going on here, a lot of creativity, a lot of originality going on. It just runs out of ideas about an hour into the film, unfortunately. But it's not what I would call a bad film. I think it's still above average, but the potential, I think, was there for this to be so much more than what we actually got. So, yeah, check it out if you get the opportunity. Let me know in the comments what you thought if you get around to watching this film. So thanks for watching. I will, of course, be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.